Alright, hello, it's Kubo, and I would like to bring to you guys the tier list for Pearls in Paradise. This expansion was actually quite awesome. It had tourists, so a lot of these cards were used in two different classes. The tourist mechanic itself, I think, it was quite great. Just gave us so many more options, and the tourists themselves, I think I rated most of them very, very highly. So I really appreciated the mechanics. They also had reopenable locations, which is quite fantastic, and possibly the best design of 2025, which we will see in a moment. So yeah, I will maybe start this time with some of the less exciting cards of the set. So let me talk about this a little bit. A lot of these were in a big spell mage package where the deck was just not very enjoyable to play or play against, where you would play a big spell early using stuff like King Tide or Portland Lancer Skyla, which was released at 5 mana. That's quite crazy broken. And then you would use coins from Metal Detector to cheat Skyla out even earlier, then you would use Conniving Conman and Seashell to both cheat those spells out or replay with the Conman. Since the way Conman used to work for a moment is it would replay the last card you played from non-rogue class rather than another class, which was really, really strong in Mage and also in Paladin. So therefore, a lot of these cards are at the bottom of the list here. Also, free weapon rogue cards. Yeah, the rogue, or okay, two weapon rogue cards, Sharpshipman and Swarty Sword Shiner, because that sort of playstyle was not amazing. We also have Rest in Peace, because resing Amantul is not fun, and neither is resing the Starship. So I really didn't appreciate that. Travel Master Dungar, because it was just like a cheat to cheat this card out as early as possible, play it, and then win the game. Not again, don't really appreciate that one that much. Hydration Station. The experience of playing against people bringing you back Ankylliacs over and over and over again was just so miserable that I had to put this card right at the bottom. Ranger Gilly, the frustrating card of the Handbuff Hunter. I don't actually find Handbuff Hunter that much as a downside as this card itself. It's just made playing it so frustrating because sometimes you drew Gilly and your deck just did not function. And I feel like this tourist design was quite miserable to deal with. As well as like the current biggest offender of the meta game, Grifta. Just because the design of the amulets I was not very thrilled with how some of them are so much better than the others. So you're always looking for deal 6 or mind control or discount, and you don't actually particularly care about any of the other ones, and sometimes you really want healing. And at least compared to Mixologist, which is all the way up here in the list in the tier S, uh, the Grifta just looks really pale. Insidious, because damage to minions and face is not really appreciated by me, and Food Fight, the ability to cheat out a big minion. It's similar to Chemical Spill, really. The deck this created with the Briar Spawndrake Warrior was just not particularly fun to play against or particularly interactive. It's one of these, if they have this card, they probably win. And one of my probably least favorite cards, but not played very much, Sleepy Resident, just ended up being in all sorts of rush to the OTK type of decks, where it just bought you another turn. But it was really weak to Shaladrasil, so you better OTK before turn 8. And just these games did not feel particularly enjoyable to me. That's the quick overview of the Hamfrul. The forgettable tier, again, this is like kind of my big grudge with the Blizzard's design philosophy. Lots of forgettable cards here. Yeah. The D tier is mostly cards that have seen very, very little play, but have seen some play at some point. I will not talk about them particularly closely. The C tier is a little bit of a mix of cards that have seen sparse play, or the cards that were kind of frustrating to play against, like Reserve Spot, um, is the frustrating one. Also, Patches I found pretty frustrating because if you just top deck those parachutes on turn 2, then that was not a very fun experience. And also Trial Mix because it was primarily used with like Dungar and then later Low. Turtle and Traveler also cheating, seeing play in the Hydration deck. not my favorite. Yeah. Then the B tier is the cards that have seen frequent play a lot of the time, or again, some frustrating cards in here. Mostly these are um, relatively frequent play at some point, like Spirit Peddler, recently, or Scrapbooking Student, recently with the Location Druid and the Peddler Demon Hunter. Tight pulls in like Protoss Mage deck. And one card that is kind of an outlier here is Treasure Hunter Eudora, because just based on play rate, I don't think this card deserves to be here. But it was so incredibly fun to play with this card that I bumped it up a little bit of the tiers. Because I think play rate wise, this card belongs either in Forgettable or in the D tier. But it was so fun to build meme decks around this card that I kind of have to put it all the way up here. Oh yeah, also Cookie, another one of those slightly frustrating ones where sometimes you just rolled broken 2-drops and sometimes you rolled Doomsayer. It created good highlights though, but yeah, not really my favorite card. Then tier A, here are some of the amazing cards that were printed this expansion. I really enjoyed the entire Drunk Paladin package with Divine Brew, Shanti, and Life Saving Aura and Sun's Upper Linessa, although I understand that this could have been a frustrating experience for others, so that's why these cards do not go in S, but in A instead. Dark Marrow and Arana, or Dark Marrow, this card has seen a lot of play. There was like I think using this card for tempo was quite awesome in whatever the deck was called. Um, in Starship Warlocks or like all sorts of control warlocks, like being able to play for tempo as a control deck was quite nice. There was a tiny bit of a frustrating experience with it where if you drew Ultralisk Cavern and Consume and Dark Marrow, that you could have had two 8/8s as a control deck on turn 4 or turn 5, depending on whether you're on coin or not. And that was not the most fun that I've had playing Hearthstone, so that's why this card is in A instead of S. Go with the flow support card for Concierge Druid. Concierge Druid, I think one of my favorite decks of all time, really. Um, One of my most favorite decks of all time. That's why Concierge is also all the way up here. Both of the supporter cards for the archetype. Just the deck that is sort of an OTK deck, but it needs an empty board for that to happen. I think that's like kind of a nice design to have. The deck was a little too strong, which is why these cards are in A, not in S. And honestly, Concierge is also in A just because the card got completely deleted out of the game after that deck, and or after that deck's been around for like a month, and I did not really appreciate that, so I dropped some points off for that one. But the deck just, I really like the design of OTKs that care about the board. So I wish we see that a little more. Tsunami also kind of an awesome card, an awesome part of the big spell mage, because another one of these board based cards that punishes you for not playing for the board. I really appreciate the designs like that because board is a big part of Hearthstone, and there should be cards that make you want to play for the board rather than just sit AFK with your hand there and draw cards and then do 60 damage from hand without caring for anything that your opponent ever does. I think that's not the greatest play pattern, so I really appreciate that. Brain Masseuse, one of my favorite 1-drops of the set, actually. Just it was a little overpowered, which is why again in A, not in S. But the ability to like having to make a decision whether you play this 1-drop later in the game or whether you're afraid of just dying because you can take so much damage from their rushing, like from your opponent rushing an 8/8 into it or something. It just like kind of makes it super nice to play with, and I really appreciate that this design of the self damage aggro deck. It's also the deck that like kind of when it loses the board it kind of dies because you already take damage as you are playing the game naturally. So suddenly when you lose the board you're at 15, so you know you're not actually waiting there trying to finish the game off. You just like once you lose the board you kind of it's kind of over. Right? So I do like this design. Razzle Dazzler, this card is this one of the my most favorite cards to play with when it was at 6 mana. It's released at 7, then they buffed it to 6. Then they nerfed it back to 7, which I really did not appreciate. I think the Razzle Dazzler Death Knight, I think it was played in, yes, with the buttons, the Shaman Tourist. That was quite an awesome deck, so both of these cards actually in A for that reason. Seaside Giant created Location Warlock. I think Location Warlock was like the main reason that I put it all the way up here. It was also quite fun as Zerk Hunter, although slightly frustrating because sometimes 3 of these guys came down on turn 3. I think I have screenshots like that when I have 30 powers on board on turn 3. And that was not a great experience, but I did enjoy that deck quite a bit. The StarCraft deck. And I will be probably talking about it a little later when I review the StarCraft set, but Seaside Giant because of that deck all the way up here. Brittlebone Buccaneer, again, one of these cards that makes you care for board, makes you care for your removal when it was a 1/4. It was so important to get rid of this guy if it was played on turn 2, because the Starship piece could come down, or like Chillfallen Baron even. Just anything that came down, it was like a nice fight for board, and I appreciate this. Also in Zerk Death Knight, again, you just played it on 2, and they had to kill it. So that kind of created like a nice situation where you need to think about what can I do to kill a 1/4 on turn 2. So I enjoyed that. It was nerfed at the appropriate time. I think at some point it was a little too strong and a little frustrating. So that's why it's all the way down here. No, that's why it's not in S again, but in A. A Robocaller, one of these cards mm, where it's card draw and tutoring, but also it's a little random. I did not actually enjoy playing with this card that much because it felt like it always shows me the numbers that I don't want. But it was a very interesting mini game to play, and I enjoyed that, and I appreciate the mini games like that. The little bit of a downside of this card is the deck that was with Everything Must Go, where it tutored that card and it allowed you to put cheat it out as early as turn 3, and that was not a great experience. So that is why Robocaller, again, not in S but in A. What else is here? Paraglide, Mill Shaman, Terran Shaman, quite a nice card in all of that, and quite an interesting choice of whether you play for outcasting it, whether you just play it for cards, to draw your opponent cards, where you save it to mill your opponent, etc. Marion the Manager, actually, this card was a little frustrating at the start, where the Wanderer's Wand used to set the cost of the cards it drew to 0 that you could get from the Marion. After that nerf happened, this became like kind of an awesome control card, where it just like it provides a big stack of value, but on the other hand, it's not too broken on tempo. So you actually just need to find time to play it in a control game, and then you play your wand, and then you're very happy about yourself if you can do that and not die. But if you do die, then well, then your risk didn't pay off. Gorgon Zormu, I think the very undeserved nerf to that card also. It was so awesome as a free mana free to be able to play with this cheese card. Play it at the right time, which sometimes was immediately, sometimes it was a turn after, and sometimes it was wait until it gives you big minions for value. All you had to decide depending on the matchup. I really enjoyed this one too. Ham the Hungry, nice way to do a tourist. This is a card that would not see play in any Hearthstone deck, but you really want to run New Heights and Warrior, so you have to slot it in, and then you have you're basically forcing this disruption technology that is pretty weak in Control Warrior, so that this kind of makes the warriors less willing to run stronger disruption tools because you already have this weak one that you will be likely to play, and you don't really want more disruption in your deck because then you're not running your good cards. So I did like that one too. All right, and finally moving to tier S. This I already mentioned as a honorable mention on my Twitter, Maestra Mask Merchant, as one of my favorite designs of the year still. It is just kind of awesome what this card does in strong rogue decks like Cycle Rogue, where you really want to run Eat the Imp. And I just appreciate what this card does, where it introduces this like kind of weird wacky factor to the game sometimes, where you play it, then you play the hero card, and you're trying to get something out of that hero card. Yeah, this is like a really well done tourist in my opinion. I really enjoyed playing with that card. Frosty Decor, just a very great survivability tool for Shaman, also combined with Tempo. A strong card, but not. It's not like actually good tempo to play Frosty Decor on turn 5, but it's a nice tool for survival, so it like enabled to play with slower Shaman decks without dying instantly. Really appreciated that. Mixologist, this is Grifta design but done well. A lot of the one cost options are quite good, and you have two rolls at them. So a lot of the time when you play Mixologist, you will get something that is helpful, but not necessarily in the way you want it sometimes in the way you want it, depending. And also making this choice sometimes in advance is really important to make a good choice in advance on Mixologist and like in the side games. And I really enjoyed that part of this card. All you can eat, really amazing draw. Oh, you don't see it because of my camera. Yeah, all you can eat, really amazing draw tool for Control Warrior. Again, really appreciate it. This card being allowed. It's also a deck building challenge, right? You want this card in the deck because it's so strong. So you want to kind of run tribal minions so that this draws free every time, but you also don't want to run too many because you want this to tutor your specific minions, such as Hostile Invader, introduced in Great Dark Beyond a little later. Uh, so it's a little bit of a balance, a little bit of a deck building challenge, and also you have to sort of set up the hand space to be able to play it a lot of the time. I again really enjoyed playing with this card. I really appreciate this design. Birdie watching, well, it's a discover card, so decision advance made it. I think this is one of the most. I think this might be the most played class card in the history of Hearthstone because it was played in all three classes that it was available in, between Shaman, Hunter, and Priest. And I think it was played in like every deck. And it didn't feel too broken, it didn't feel too frustrating to play against. That's why, if you have that kind of play rate and you're not being complained about, it's kind of an awesome design. Horizon's Edge, Location Warlock card, one of the most important cards there, and it created kind of a great gameplay where you have to make a decision on whether you click this, whether you copy it with the scrapbooking student. Yeah, I really appreciated this again. Dangerous Cliffside. This is like a setup card where if you can set it up with a weapon or with the spirit of the team, then it can be really, really strong. If you get 4/1/1 chargers on turn 4, like that can be really powerful. But again, you need to do that setup for it to be good. And also, it's a decision of what do you do with these chargers? Do you just go face because they have charge and it's just kind of the right thing to do to go face with charge minions? Or do you wait for it? Also, setting it up with other pirates was really nice. I think it might have seen play in Terran Shaman even at some point, or maybe that was just patches. I don't know, but you could have used it with the Shaman gift that gave you Bloodlust too, if you set it up appropriately. There's a lot of options with this card. Really enjoyed that one. Chillin' Vol'jin is just a really strong card that you had to play around if you played against Priest every time, because it was in every Priest deck. It was that good, and I do like powerful cards, and I do like cards that just introduce that factor of having to play around it. to the game. So really well done on that one. Seabreeze Chalice. I mean, this created one of my favorite decks of all time. Eventually, it got nerfed because of Owl mostly, being able to just stack it to like 10 damage or something, which was not reasonable, and got turned into a removal spell, and what a great removal spell that was too. So this is like hands down one of my favorite cards of the year. And right alongside the Tidepool Pupil, just the amount of options that this card allow you to do, the amount of amazing things that you could do with this card, oh, it's just I I just loved it. It's one of my yeah, it's one of the best cards ever. It's only fifth and not first because it started off a little too strong at 1 mana and it was too dominant on honestly. It also created the Infinite Rogue, which that deck was incredible. It was obviously too overpowered to actually exist for a long time. It was one of these decks where if you're a good player, you knew what to do and you could just win every game with it. What a deck. Yes, and what a card. I really enjoyed that one. And I play it to this day with Discover Hunter. Still quite good there, even after the nerf. Pirate Sanctuary, a reopenable location, one of the best setup cards, powerful card. You always had this decision on when to click, when to not click, that could be decisive. A little overpowered, but I think it still deserves the S tier here. Although maybe I should put it like this or something. It's a little too overpowered. Yeah, maybe put it next to the Cliffside. Dreadhunter Houndler. This card almost, it feels so core to the identity of Death Knight that, like, I can't imagine the class without it almost. It is just so awesome for Death Knight. It provides free corpses, a tiny bit of removal, but not a strong removal. Just this is what Death Knight is about. Is a really well done card. Just simple, nice, well connected. I don't know. Just great card. Eat the Imp. This is plays very well on the Warlock's idea of self-sacrifice, where you destroy a minion to draw 3 cards. So this kind of requires you to run cheap minions in order to activate this early on, because you want, and also it requires you to run cheap minions because you don't want to destroy expensive minions, right? So just like makes sense. And drawing 3 cards for 2 mana is extremely powerful, so you really wanted to do that. But on the other hand, you have to sacrifice tempo to do it, so I really enjoyed that part of the card. And finally, my favorite one of maybe even the entire year. I think it might be the favorite card of the entire year. New Heights. Increase your maximum mana by 3 and gain an empty mana crystal. It's a ramp spell done well. Like, it's a ramp spell that doesn't feel bad to play late, and it's not so overpowered that it makes your opponent, throw their computer out of the window when you play it early, like a Wildgrove used to in the early days. So I really appreciate how they did this card. This might be the best designed ramp card of all time. And yeah, I just really appreciate that. It gave the druid the ability to have ramp without being extremely frustrating. Also played in warrior. Also allowed the control warrior to just have that end game advantage inherently because of the raising the mana cap, as well as this being a pretty good early game card with gaining the empty mana crystal, finding those powerful plays easier. Really appreciate the design of this card, and yeah, it's just one of my favorite cards of all time. Yeah, so I really enjoyed this expansion overall. I think, yeah, the number of forgettable cards I am not thrilled by, but these S and A tier cards, like, you can just see how many they are all the way up here. And like, even these cards like in A, even in B, these were very, very enjoyable to play with. and I can applaud the Team 5 for designing this, really. Uh, a few more harmful cards, I think, than in Whizbang's Workshop, but not that many. I mean, I did this connected with the mini set, and well, the bad designs sometimes happen, and sometimes you make bad decisions, and that's fine. I don't think this is such a big of a downside that I would rather. Yeah, I mean, I would much rather have them design powerful cards that can go over here, as well as some designs that are not very fun to play with, rather than design cards that are just not very good to play with at all. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me. Have a wonderful rest of your day, night, wherever you are. I'll catch you next time. Bye!